The second question. I have a Jewish neighbour and they gift me food every so often. I have refused a few times, to which they have taken offense to. They say that we take your halal food, why can you not eat our food? So I have two questions. Number one, is it permissible to eat their kosher meat? If not, should I accept and chuck it in the bin, but would I be sinful for wasting food? And number two, I have seen them at our local meat shop getting meat from there. Would it now be acceptable to eat their food? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran Kareem, وَطَعَامُ الَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْكِتَابَ حِلٌّ لَكُمْ وَطَعَامُكُمْ حِلٌّ لَهُمْ. That the food of the people of the book is halal and permissible for you. This ayat though has a nuance. Those conditions, those sharait, which must be fulfilled for a sacrifice and a slaughter to be valid in Sharia, the Islamic law, are also applicable to the people of the book, as was the practice and the tradition of the time. So when this ayat was revealed, the people of the book at the time, they would sacrifice the animals exactly the way that the Muslims used to sacrifice the animals. They would fulfill those conditions which were required on the Muslims. So that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent down the ayat, and it was permissible for them also, that you can eat the food of the people of the book. So we said that the conditions have to be fulfilled. The conditions that are required for us in Sharia to be fulfilled, they must fulfill those conditions as well. And from these conditions, there are many different conditions. For example, the right veins need to be sacrificed at the time of slaughtering. And one of the conditions is, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran Kareem, فَكُلُوا مِمَّا ذُكِرَ اسْمُ اللَّهِ عَلَيْهِ إِن كُنتُم بِآيَاتِهِ مُؤْمِنِينَ. That eat from those slaughtered animals upon which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's name has been taken and has been read and invoked, if you truly believe in His verses. وَلَا تَأْكُلُوا مِمَّا لَمْ يُذْكَرِ اسْمُ اللَّهِ عَلَيْهِ وَإِنَّهُ لَفِسْقٌ. And do not eat from those slaughtered animals upon which the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala hasn't been read. Indeed, this is a disobedience. Indeed, this is a sin. So one of the conditions for a slaughter and a sacrifice to be valid in our Sharia is that the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala must be read upon every single animal before they get slaughtered. And now if you go and study, the Jewish tradition, then even according to them, it is better for them to read Allah's name, God's name upon every single animal. However, according to their traditions, it is sufficient for them to read the name of Allah upon the first animal when they are initiating the slaughter of a number of animals. So for example, if they are slaughtering, just say 10 or 100 animals, if they read the name of Allah on the first animal, for them, the rest of the other 100 are automatically halal. You don't need to read Allah's name on them. Whereas we have stated, for us, it must be read on every single animal. And there are some places where, like I say, because even according to them, you should read it on every single animal. I spoke to a Maulana in Dewsbury, Maulana Rashid Sahib. He actually does slaughtering himself. So I spoke to him, I said, have you observed any, Jewish slaughterings? And he said, no, probably just once. So I said, did they, take Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's name upon every single animal? So he said, that once that I was there, I don't know, maybe whether it was because I was watching, but they did read upon every single animal. However, at the same time, I spoke to Maulana Sheikh Yunus Halibi Sahib from London, who is the leading, you can say, he has one of the leading roles in the HMC, Halal Monitoring Committee. So I spoke to him regarding this matter, and he said to me, I'll tell you a very interesting incident that happened with me, that a Jewish rabbi came to me. A rabbi came to me, and he said, what's wrong with you Muslims? So I said, what do you mean? He said, why are your Muslims eating our kosher meat when they know that we do not read the name of Allah on every single animal? So the rabbi himself came to a Muslim and came to our Shaykh Yunus and told him this. So because of this uncertainty, whether Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's name has been taken on the animal or not, this uncertainty alone will be sufficient to render the animal as unlawful and haram, and for us is sufficient for us not to consume. Because of this doubt alone, we can't. How do we know? We don't know if Allah's name has been taken or not. So that was the first part of the question, that can we eat their kosher meat? The second part was, if not, should I accept and chuck it in the bin? And they're taking offense to it. So I would say that, obviously your neighbor, you should explain to them the reasoning. Now that you know the reasoning for this, that they don't take Allah's name, you should explain to them, look, we eat halal only. Allah's name has to be taken on every single animal, and unfortunately, there's uncertainty regarding your slaughter. And hopefully they should understand. And whether you should chuck it in the bin yourself or not, or even accept it or not, in this situation where it's kosher meat, that kosher is haram because of the uncertainty, now it will not be permissible to take. You can't take something haram into your own property. And what thought will that give to the onlooker, to your neighbor? He will think that, look, today I have managed to convince him to eat my kosher meat. Even if you're just taking it and binning it. But because we know it's haram, he knows it's haram. He knows that it's haram for you. Once you take it, he's going to think, look, I managed to convince this guy to take the meat. Tomorrow I'm going to call him and I'll take him out to one of, obviously Jews don't go to the pubs, but we'll go out to a haram restaurant. And I'll, say, look, there's halal food there, but slowly, this is how they work. And these are the waswasas of shaitan, these are the tricks of shaitan, and slowly, this is how your iman is lost. So under no circumstance can you give up your iman for this neighbor. And I was going to mention the ruling of taking food from other neighbors. Obviously Christians. So I'll clarify the point of the Quran ayat again of طَعَامُ الَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْكِتَابَ حِلٌّ لَكُمْ. People might say Christians are also from the people of the book. And this is a very big misconception, when I think lots of Arab scholars, they come here and they eat from McDonald's, they eat from Burger King, and they are saying these people are Christian, so it is halal for us. So two things. Number one is they are not, majority of the Christians nowadays are not practicing Christians anymore. We've, mentioned about the census report several of times that, for the first time, less than 50% of the population in England is not Christian anymore. So number one, they're not practicing Christians anymore. Number two, we said Allah's name must be taken. Again, they don't take it, or even, for example, if they were actually Christian, there's uncertainty. We don't know. So we can't take a Christian's food based on that Quran ayat. Lots of people, this is why you should go to a scholar for certain things. Looking at a Quran ayat by itself is not sufficient, because we don't know what the actual meaning of this is. So that's number one. Number two, if a Christian was to give you food and you didn't know what contents are in this bag, there are two opinions. One opinion is of my teacher, Hazrat Mufti Sufi Saab, Mufti Tahir Saab, one of the greatest muftis in England at the moment. And he says that no matter what they give you, how they give it you, straight away you should alert them. And you should tell them, look, I only eat halal. Whether you know what's in that bag or not, you should tell them, I only eat halal. Is it halal food in there or not? And the benefit for this is this will turn into a mode of preaching. It'll become a form of da'wah. You will say to them, is this halal? And they'll say, excuse me? Halal? And you say, yes, we have our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he educated us that we can only eat meat that is slaughtered in a certain way. And then Prophet Muhammad, and then slowly a conversation, and it gets them interested into Islam. We have our regular visit, our mosque days. And most of the people that come and convert, they have an interest of Islam from before. Something has kind of attracted them and to bring them into the mosque and the masjid in the first place. So this sort of conversation may attract them to the masjid, may attract them towards Islam. And one of the points that we were talking about is the recent World Cup that took place in Qatar. That, you know, on Twitter there was so many people tweeting about the bidets and the toilet shower, you know, the water sprinkler, and they were fascinated. Wow, how did we not know about this? Why do we not have such a system in the UK where we can clean ourselves using a spray water gun? So they were very fascinated about this. And in reality, we've had this for, you know, so many years. So this sort of fascinated them, interested them, and then, so yes, so that's the conclusion of that. And the second opinion would be, if they brought food to you, you don't know what's inside, you can take it. Because you don't know whether it's halal in there, it's haram in there, whether it's vegetables, what's in the bag. They just said, we brought you some food, it could be anything. You know, as long as they've not specified, you can take it. And once you open it, if it's haram, you know, you can chuck it in the bin. And number two, you know, I've heard one, you know, where there's an overpowering thought it might be haram, you can still take it. Because once you take it, it is the lesser of two evils. If you were to return that food back to them, what are they going to do? They're going to consume it themselves, or they're going to pass it on to somebody else. Whereas if you took it and you chucked it in the bin, you're saving, you know, somebody else from being involved in evil, for somebody else from consuming this haram food. So in that aspect, it would also sort of be permissible. But once they've stated that this is haram, you know, it's not allowed, then we can't take that food. Because of that thought, you know, they will think later on, look, I managed to convince this guy, persuade this guy. So that was regarding kosher meat, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows better regarding this.